Parenting can feel like a battlefield sometimes, but imagine doing it while your partner's away and often unreachable for long stretches. You've moved 3 times in 2 years, and your kids are starting over in a new school again. No, this isn't life in witness protection. It's the reality for many military families. According to the U.S. Army's own stats, 30% of military-connected kids experience anxiety or depression after deployments, but they also have incredible strengths. Studies show that these kids develop above-average adaptability, problem-solving skills, and resilience that serve them throughout life. So today, we're looking at what life as a military family can teach every parent about resilience, from building rock-solid routines to having those hard conversations about stress, mental health, and even substance use. I'm Jodie Sweetin, and this is Awkward Conversations, where each week we arm parents with the tools to raise happy, healthy kids who are empowered to make smart choices about substances. And trust me, the strategies you'll hear today could be the difference between just getting through the week and actually thriving as a family. So don't go anywhere. Your mission starts right now. It's season 5 of Awkward Conversations. Let's get into it. And as usual, I am fortunate to have with me Amy McCarthy, Senior Clinical Social Worker at Harvard Boston Children's Hospital in the Division of Addiction Science. Welcome, Amy.
Thanks, Jodie. Today we're joined by Dave Colson, a third-generation veteran who served our country and came home facing undiagnosed traumatic brain injury, PTSD, anxiety, and addiction. Dave achieved sobriety and realized that true recovery also meant addressing the underlying trauma. He's the founder of DJC Solutions, where he trains veterans, first responders, and community leaders to overcome trauma, build resilience, and lead healthier lives. Dave, we're so grateful to have you here. Welcome to the show.
It is an honor to be here.
Welcome to the show. And joining us as well is Mr. Paul Ryan, who is the chairman of the Elks National Veterans Service Commission, but also one of the commissioners of the Elks Drug Awareness Program, which, along with the DEA, proudly sponsors this series. Paul leads the Elks' century-long mission of serving veterans, from providing housing and health support to combating isolation and strengthening communities. Paul, thank you for being here, and thank you for all you do for our veterans and their families.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I also want to extend to Dave, thank you so much for your service.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, the Elks have been serving veterans for over a century. Can you tell us a little bit about how the organization is supporting veterans today?
Our motto is that so long as there are veterans, the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks will never forget them. And we mean it. The Elks actually donated the very first Veterans Administration hospital, and our history from service goes all the way back to the disasters like the Johnston flood. Today, we focus on 5 main areas: housing, homelessness, health, employment, and military family and education. Some of our core programs include welcome home kits, which have beds, linens, cookware, cleaning supplies, gift cards, so on for veterans moving out of homelessness. We have an emergency assistance fund that for at-risk veterans to help cover rent, deposits, or utilities. We have an Adopt a Veteran program where volunteers visit veterans in hospitals, care centers, and shelters and fight isolation. We have a Veterans Leather program where we donated hides throughout the country and turned them into therapy kits for wheelchair gloves. Last year alone, our Veterans Leather program donated over 14,000 craft kits.
That's amazing.
And of course, then from our own foundation, our Elks National Foundation, we have another grant through the Elks National Veterans Service Commission where lodges are able to get a grant in order to do a specifically veterans project.
This is incredible. I had no idea about all these resources, and it goes without saying that veterans deserve more support than is really out there. This is wonderful.
Yeah, this is great. And I know so many veterans and military families are looking for extra support. I know it can be really hard to make ends meet. I know a lot can happen after you get back from deployment. So thank you so much for all the incredible work that you do. And of course, supporting this show, Awkward Conversations, as well. You guys are really reaching a lot of people and doing a lot of amazing work. So thank you. Now, what do you think it is that sets the Elks veteran work apart from other organizations? You guys have been doing this for over a century, so what do you think it is that makes the Elks organization particularly special?
I think the biggest thing is the fact that we don't just write a check. We don't just fund the projects. We actually combine our resources with real boots on the ground. When we do projects, we do them with all the volunteers of the Elks members themselves. Every lodge has the flexibility to tailor projects to its own community. You'll see things like in Minnesota, these are statewide projects, but we do a Camp Ripley hunt, which Camp Ripley is a military grounds in Minnesota, and it's 65,000 acres. And we take disabled American veterans out into the field and they hunt turkey and deer. And it's exclusively for disabled American veterans. We have a Trolling for Troops program where it's veterans that get into boats and we make sure that they're safe and they're having fun, but they get an opportunity to go out into the lake and go out into the rivers and go fishing. It's a phenomenal program. And of course, we also just recently, they had the National Wheelchair Olympics in Minnesota. And we put some boots on the ground just to help them out wherever they needed it. They would just grab one of us and take us and do whatever they suggested. So we got a lot of programs that we have the grassroots model in our superpower. When you give an elk a job, I guarantee they're going to get it done.
Well, we've seen that time and time again here on our show. That's for
we
sure.
have definitely.
And it's programs like these that have led to this decrease in homelessness for veterans. In the last 15 years, homelessness amongst veterans is down 55%. I think I say that, of course, that's encouraging, that's hopeful. And also there's so much more work still to be done. But the work you're doing with the Elks, I think, has obviously contributed to that greatly.
Yeah.
Dave, can you tell us a little bit about, among these programs and programs in general for veterans, what are the things that stand out to you as being most helpful and supportive of the group and population?
Yes, first I got to say thanks to the Elks for all that they do as well. And as a veteran, I didn't even know the breadth of the services and program y'all do to support veterans. And just from hearing what you've got going on, the connection, the community, the giving the veterans a place to truly belong. After separating from service, while we're serving, we belong to a unit. We belong to a company, a platoon, a squad. But then we separate, we can feel lost and alone and isolated. So whichever the programs the Elks are offering, the biggest one is just bringing that sense of belonging back to veterans.
That's such a theme, I think, that gets reiterated throughout so many of our episodes for young people, for adults, is finding, again, your crew, your people, your supports, your community.
Absolutely. And volunteer work, helping others, being of service, like all of those things really help improve connection. And we know that connection and communication are the number 1 and 2 protective factors, basically, that can really help combat substance use. So
strong communities help foster strong, independent people and young people and families.
And I'm talking about community and a sense of belonging. Could you tell us a little bit more about the big crossover there are between Elks and current active military and veterans as well? I know that there's a lot of Elks that are veterans and currently in the military.
I think that obviously for our organization, it's not a requirement to be a veteran in order to be a part of the Elks organization. However, the more that we exist and the more that we do out there, the veterans are finding out that this is an organization that I feel like there's more than just you giving to us. It's a family. It's a unit where we can, and the military is a family themselves, and that's what they're used to. And Dave alluded to the fact that when he got out of the military, he felt that isolation. We're bringing it back. And so when we organize meals for veterans or we do childcare or anything like that, that we help with not even just veterans, but even those that are deployed, that have families that are back at home, we can help them out and we connect with them and we make them feel comfortable. And that, as I think, is the one thing that they can feel, that family atmosphere when they come within the organization, and all of the Elks that are willing to help them out in just about any way, shape, or form.
Think about the veterans themselves, but also their family members. Are there ways that the Elks are supporting the family as a whole?
Yeah, like I said, we do a lot of different lodges do different things throughout the country. We have 2,000 lodges throughout the country. And we have over 330 VA facilities that we have military families that we help out. So just about anywhere you go in the country, they also offer something. If you need something, we're willing to step up. If it's childcare, if you need a child to be taken care of, we go on a job interview, go grocery shopping. If we have organizations for kids themselves. We do hoop shoot. We have scholarship programs. We have soccer shoots. We have so many different things that we try and get the kids involved in. Also, it's not just for veterans, but it's for the whole community in itself. By far, we are open and are willing to help in any way that we possibly can.
saying that there's over 2,000 lodges in the country is so helpful, because I know one of the things that kids of military families who are often moving a lot, they feel really isolated. There's not that consistency. They find a group of friends or a school and then they have to move. And that can be really hard on kids. But the idea that there is that consistency across from moving from one Elks Lodge to the other, that support system, I bet, is really helpful to families.
Blue Star families found that 65% of the military families feel isolated after a move. But when they connect with civic groups like the Elks, the isolation drops dramatically. We bring a sense of belonging that they had service. And that belonging, I bet you Dave will say this too, that belonging is priceless.
Absolutely.
I think you said it all right there, as I would say.
Welcome back to Awkward Conversations, and welcome to Season 5.
Saving lives means staying informed. Knowing the dangers of using fake prescription pills can help those you care about and keep our community safe. As a parent, educator, neighbor, or friend, we all play a role in building safe and healthy futures for ourselves and our loved ones. Do your part to take the first step today. Visit GetSmartAboutDrugs.com to access education, prevention, and treatment resources. Fake prescription pills laced with fentanyl are deadly. Be their protector. Be informed. Visit GetSmartAboutDrugs.com.
You're listening to Awkward Conversations. Thanks for being here. Service members come home to their families, the stress that they are feeling and the PTSD, and like you talked about, the undiagnosed traumatic brain injuries, things like that can really affect the family dynamic, I'm sure, too. What are some ways that you've found that can really help bring families back together?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There are a lot of strengths that come from also going through the struggle when it comes to military service and families. And I think I would probably say that the resilience in the military families, they develop it is extraordinary. And you can lean into routines and structure. They provide a sense of stability when everything else feels uncertain. The struggles, the constant moves, all of the other risk factors that we can probably list pretty quick. That structure in routine creates that foundation that they can depend on, they can count on.
And that's something that's applicable to all families, not just military families. The ideas of resilience, the ideas of routine building, that's something that we've talked about in almost every episode, is that consistency.
I love so much, of course, always reframing the challenges into strengths, and you've done such a beautiful job of that. I think in my experience as a social worker and a therapist, I hear a lot of military families talking about the experience of kind of having to get to know each other again after a time away. A child might be significantly older by the time their caregiver returns, and the caregiver may return, again, having experienced things that were very difficult while they're away. And so I think normalizing that and being able to name, like, we haven't been together physically in a while, and what are the ways that we can reacclimate and get to know each other and get to know the new versions of ourselves.
Yeah. Can I tell a story first?
Oh, please.
You can
all the
take it where
we love stories.
Yes, please do.
So actually, a fellow veteran that lives in Minnesota shares this analogy of being deployed and coming to home. And he talks about canoeing, in that in a canoe, everybody has a job. You got to paddle in sync to keep the canoe going forward. You have to stay centered so you don't tip it. A deployment is like an individual in that canoe being plucked out of that canoe. And so the family members have to pick up and start paddling and fill in the gaps to keep that canoe moving forward where it's supposed to go. Now, when the soldier comes back, they plop right back into that canoe. They might feel a little lost. What is my role? Y'all picked up without me, and the family's going on. They know what they're doing. And so it does absolutely take a little bit of time to adjust, not just for the family members, but also for that soldier that was deployed as well.
Boy,
Just a fun little story I like to tell.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Very helpful to put it in perspective.
I would also include first awareness, understanding that it might take a little bit of time to warm back up to each other, and that's okay.
What in your experience really helped or has helped others that you know of move through that, so that getting back into that idea that I can communicate my feelings, that this is safe? I'm sure that's a real struggle.
I like to tell stories, so here comes another one.
Great. We love a good storyteller.
Chapter 2.
When it relates to that military toughness or mindset, I can remember the exact night I learned a hard truth about that. See, You're going to see a nice little fire in my eyes because this story is about the night I knew I wanted to marry my wife. We were only dating for just a couple of months, and picture this. We're standing in an amphitheater at a Thomas Rhett concert, shoulder to shoulder. And for her, it was a happy moment. She surprised me with the tickets, just pure joy. But for me, the crowd, the noise, the flying beer cans, like I got tense, my chest tightened, my old instinct kicked in. And this is what's amazing is she noticed before I even spoke, she leaned over and she just said, "Let's go." No judgment, just love. And out in the quiet parking lot, we, Army sniper here, I'm getting a little emotional, but we swayed under the stars. Like we're just dancing in the parking lot, listening to the echo of the music. And that night I knew I wanted to marry her because she saw parts of me that I thought I had to hide, and she accepted them fully.
Yeah, so you're going to get us all a little teary. And we're not snipers over here. We're emotion people. Like, we're connected.
Right. But I learned in that moment that vulnerability isn't the opposite of strength. It's a continuation of it.
Beautifully answered the question. And I was going to say it's something, again, for all families, that idea of vulnerability. And we talk about it often when trying to connect with your kids and young people, is allowing them to feel seen. And it sounds like in that moment, you felt really seen and could let those walls drop. And that's really important.
Very interesting story, David, because it's the same thing that I noticed in my father-in-law. It's one of the reasons why I got so connected to the veterans program through the Elks. He never talked about his concerns. He hid his military association. We all knew he was a veteran. He served in Vietnam, but he never wanted to talk about it. And then finally, I was like, I'm getting involved with this so that I can learn better about how I can associate with my father-in-law, to a point where finally I pulled him out. He took pride in his service, and he took pride in being a veteran.
Transformational for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about what stressors are unique to military families and how those stressors impact youth in their own mental health and their substance use in particular.
One of the things I think civilians sometimes underestimate is really just how disruptive military life can be for kids. We had already talked earlier about moving. Just imagine being a teenager who has to move every 1 or 2 years. New town, new school.
We know that mental health in itself, anxiety and depression, are risk factors for using substances or experimenting with that substance use. In fact, we know that military-connected youth are 2 times more likely to experience anxiety than their civilian peers in many ways, and that the frequent relocations can be associated with a 15% higher risk in depressive symptoms. So these are things, I think, that are things that families can look out for, and getting support and getting access to care and treatment can really combat the development of some of these things in some ways. I think we also talk a lot about, again, finding your place for belonging. And so when you make those moves, being able to prioritize finding a healthy support group and network for your kids, like we talked about, that can be really helpful. What are other protective factors that military families can be thinking of? Because we know there are so many strengths within these families, as you've already both alluded to. Let's talk more about those strengths and how we can protect these kids.
My favorite part, folks. Build up the positive. The positive exists, and it is worth growing. Absolutely. And we already talked about routines and structure and how that gives kids stability when everything feels just like a whirlwind. But also in the military community, there's a built-in support system, whether it's other military families or just the battle buddy mentality. The kids learn that early, that no one fights alone, even amidst the frequent relocations. Yes, they are stressful. If any of y'all have ever moved.
Yeah, moving is overwhelming.
The thought of it, everyone to do years.
Been literally doing.
I know. But in those stressful times, those relocations, the kids are also learning adaptability and the ability to thrive in diverse environments. And probably one of the most powerful protective factors is watching their parents model resilience. Whether it's handling a deployment, reintegration, the kids are constantly watching us. They're seeing how we cope with challenges, and that can become a part of their own toolkit as well.
Yeah, we were talking about that in another episode too, about how parents modeling getting through stressors, whether it be economic or housing or financial.
Traumatic events.
Exactly. That idea of resilience we know is one of the top protective factors, but really the idea of parents modeling it for their kids is so important. And like you said, important to be vulnerable and say, hey, I'm really stressed out right now, but it's okay. I have space to talk about your feelings too and still feel mine.
I'm nervous to move and make new friends
Right.
too, and we're going to make new friends and we're going to do it together.
Yeah.
Yep. And even just narrating, just sharing, hey, I'm feeling a little stressed out today, so I'm actually going to unplug and not look at my phone or social media. I'm going to go read a book outside and sit in the sun. So we've been talking about connection and belonging, and those both were very important in my own healing and recovery. But another thing I see with military families is just consistency as well. And I feel like the Elks, just Paul, it sounds like y'all got a lot going on in that realm as well.
Yeah, as you mentioned, and we've got 2,000 lodges nationwide. We service over 330 VA facilities. Military families have built a in community almost anywhere they go. Just about anywhere in the country, somewhere close, there's an Elks Lodge. And during deployments, lodges also will step up to help at home parent, organizing meals and offering childcare help and just making sure they're okay. For kids, we've got our youth camps, we've got fishing camps, we've got sports activities that we can make the kids and friends feel connected. And because so many Elks are veterans themselves, there's a deep understanding of military life, that the deployments and the reintegration, the camaraderie, the loyalty, and shared purpose. It's a brotherhood and sisterhood.
And those predictable routines for young people after a big move, they showed a reduction 47% of the time to reduce those mental health and those kind of difficulties around moving. And it's so amazing to hear how the Elks are ready to welcome you home no matter where you live across the United States, and are such a resource for so many of us in our country.
Yeah.
So I think a few times today we've already talked about how all of these issues are so specific and important for military families, but there's also a lot of lessons for civilian families to take from what we're talking about today. Dave, tell us more about what in your work, and what are the lessons that us civilians can take from military families and what they're going through.
Ooh, yes, there's a lot that we can learn from each other. But when it comes to lessons civilians can learn from military families, I think one of the biggest lessons comes back to that power of structure, connection, and belonging, that thread that's been throughout our conversation, and quite frankly, through all of your past episodes as well. Military families often live by routines out of necessity, meals at a certain time, chores that everyone has to pitch in on, and that predictable schedule. And those routines do create that sense of safety and predictability. We already mentioned about how routines can reduce child anxiety by almost half. Civilians can apply the same principle at home. Consistent family dinner, bedtime routines, a weekly check-in that the kids know that they can just count on it. No matter how small it is, the routine, the act, it's about the consistency, and that's what makes the difference. And I'd probably say, too, another lesson is the way military families handle conversations. Oftentimes, we don't have the luxury of avoiding tough topics. You have to talk about deployment. You talk about stress. You talk about substance use, because pretending it isn't happening, it's just not an option.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot. If you're unable to be calm in the moment, or you're scared, or you're stressed, take a deep breath and just give yourself that moment, because nothing good comes from conversations when one or both parties are stressed or anxious. What are some of the signs, we talk about it all the time, but what are some of the signs that someone might be struggling with anxiety, depression, substance use, and the protective factors that we always talk about?
There's the obvious ones I think most folks, could list and come up with, such as slipping grades, mood swings, skipping school, withdrawing from friends, and those are all important to notice. But I think I kind of want to talk about one that doesn't get talked about as much. It's the opposite. The child who seems all too perfect, right? Like just straight A's, always smiling, never causing problems. Now, that's okay, but sometimes that overcompensation is actually a mask.
I love so much that you brought this up, because I also agree that it's one of the topics that we don't talk about as much in this work, is paying attention to the kid who maybe doesn't seem to be struggling, and that they might be feeling an immense amount of pressure and stress to be that perfect child and not cause any waves. And I've worked with so many young people where that kind of only gets them so far, and then they might hit a plateau and then be in a really acute state of need. And so paying attention to that across the board. And we also know that some of those high performing students are also at risk of using substances, sometimes in a different way. Sometimes they're at risk of using stimulant medications or pills that kind of help them stay at the top of the class or whatever it may be. And so not necessarily saying, oh, my kid's doing great in school, that means that they're doing fine. And they have all their friends, they're doing fine. Paying attention to all these subtle signs across the board
Absolutely.
is critical.
Some of my best friends have had their daughters really struggle with that idea of perfection and that idea of having to keep it all together so that everything is perfect, because you don't want to stress your parents out. And eventually, yeah, you hit that wall and you crumble, and it's really hard to watch because they think this was the thing that was supposed to fix it. If I was perfect, if I was good. And again, going back to those communication and conversations about, it's not about being perfect. It's not about being terrible. No one's all bad. No one's all good. No situation is either of those things. It's a little gray area. And I'm sure that's really also a big conversation that military families have to have. It's not black and white all the time.
And reinforcing for young people that having needs isn't a burden. I think for some young people, it's, oh, I'm not supposed to need anything because that causes more stress for mom or dad or grandma or whoever. No, like it's normal to have needs, and it's normal to need things from your caregivers and from your community.
Comes back, just kind of spurred my thought, how we were talking about parents modeling and narrating their coping as well. It's okay to share, I have a need right now. Model it, talk about it, so then it normalizes it for the kids as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and what your organization does helping support military families?
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of things that I've incorporated based upon my own lived experience, and it's all about moving upstream into the prevention space, from sharing my story on stages across the globe to be that glimmer of hope, to helping state entities reframe their messaging from problem and fear-based messaging to messaging that inspires hope, that focuses on the positive, those protective factors, and grows those protective factors, especially as it relates to military members, families, and even to veterans alone, just uncovering the positive. Now, through my business alone, there's a lot of different ways that I do that. Everything from facilitation, training, speaking, publishing, to podcasting and online training as well. And a fun little plug, actually recently just published the Joy Journal. It is now out, and backstory on that, because I love to tell stories. Through going through the VA's trauma recovery program, I realized I've been searching for peace and joy. That's what I've been yearning for. And through all of the work I've done, I'd found peace, but it's like joy was just out of my reach. I've done gratitude journaling. I do mindfulness, mindful self-compassion, all of the work and things that should be working, but it's like there was this block. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to start trying to raise my awareness and look for joy in the everyday moments. So I created a joy journal for myself. A couple of folks, can I have that too? It's okay. So I just packaged it to share with the world as well.
We're going to have a link so that folks can access that.
Yep. Yes. All of those resources. Yeah, they're so helpful.
Where can we find the Joy Journal?
It is all over good old Amazon.
And where can we find your business, Dave? And where people can find you, your podcast, all of that kind of stuff? Do some shameless self-promotion here. We want you to plug everything you can.
Do I have to? I just want to help people. No. So my website is pretty simple, rather unique name, daveclawson.com. Very crazy, yes, but everything is linked there. All of the services I offer, my book, some swag, like my Prevention is Better Together t-shirt.
I've been waiting. I've been wanting to see what your shirt said. So
the bottom half.
Yeah. I love it.
Yes,
it is better together.
Right. It is. And the t-shirt, it's not meant to make money. It's not marketing and promotion. There's no business logo or website on it. It's about the message. And it's just my little take to try to create that sense of togetherness across the prevention field, breaking down those silos, because the more we come together and share and help each other, the better off all of our communities are going to be.
Yeah, I love the Joy Journal idea. Journaling is a super helpful part of my daily meditation and all of that. So it's a really important one too for people to think about. Paul, if you could leave us with one lasting thing that you are especially proud of, what would that be?
Of course, the whole organization in itself, I just love the community action along with not just the veterans, but I know we're focused around that today. But let me give you an example of what we do here. This lodge in Minnesota gave 700 of those welcome home kits last year. And that's more than twice our entire homeless population, our veteran population. And what that tells me is that we're reaching out to people that are not in the statistics, but also those at risk transitioning from unstable housing. People I never thought otherwise but get help. Each kit is more than just stuff. It's more than a bed to sleep on, dishes to eat from, towels in the bathroom, even cleaning supplies. It's dignity and stability. And you see the results. The Minnesota Veterans Homeless has dropped from a decade ago, about 600 to now under 300 today. And we're on track for a functional zero. So we can provide housing to any veteran within a 90-day period. Elks are proud to be a part of the momentum to pull the veterans off the street. That Welcome Home Kit is one of my proudest things that we do.
I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Paul. It was really great to hear about all the wonderful things that the Elks does. I am so proud that we get to be a part of that organization and helping with substance-free families and helping support all kinds of families going through all kinds of stresses, particularly military families. So thank you so much, Paul, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Is there any last resources that you want to list out where people can find exactly what the Elks do?
Yeah, before I go, I'd just like to say that if you are at all thinking that you want to get involved or get to find an elk or where an Elks Lodge is at, we have our website, elks.org. It's elks.org. Please go there. You can look up where Elks Lodges are and you can connect with them.
Thank you so much for sharing all of these amazing resources and all of the work you do. It's just really commendable. And I know that both military families and all families need that support, that connection, and that consistency. So thank you so much for reminding us about that and for continuing the conversation of more awkward conversations, which actually turned out not to be too terribly awkward.
It didn't feel too awkward.
No, not at all. Thank you so much to Paul and Dave for joining us today. You guys have offered so many amazing resources. The Elks, learning about what they do is just incredible. And Dave, your Joy Journal and all of these things and these resources that you provide are so helpful for, yeah. And military families and any family. Really, that idea of connection and consistency and support is, we all need that. We all need that. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you all very much. It's been an honor, and I'm going to tune into all of the other episodes as well. Thanks for sharing such great wisdom with the world.
Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate being on here today. This has been a thrill for me, and I hope that we can make a difference nationwide.
We really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see you next time. And remember, everybody, we will be back next week and keep those conversations happening. That's it for today's episode of Awkward Conversations. I'm Jodie Sweetin. I'll see you next time. Did you know that teenagers with low self-esteem are significantly more likely to turn to drugs as a way to cope? This troubling trend isn't just affecting girls. Boys are increasingly following into this dangerous pattern too. With the recent surge in media coverage of new weight loss drugs, kids are constantly bombarded with potentially harmful messaging.
Tragically, really, body dysfaction is rampant in our culture. I mean, it's very hard to find people, particularly women and girls, but also people of all genders who are dissatisfied and unhappy with their bodies. So clinically diagnosable eating disorders are relatively rare, but body dysfaction is everywhere, and it's very harmful.
Indeed, yeah. So many people don't realize that with eating disorders, the absence of your body and brain getting the nutrients causes you to not always be able to think in a logical or rational kind of manner.
We're really focusing today on the idea of body image issues, their intersection with substance use disorder, and how we help people build up that self-esteem and build up that feeling of resiliency and acceptance for themselves.
We have to recognize that these are public health problems and that they can't be solved child by child, house by house. You know, that it can't, although we all as parents do absolutely the best we can, the truth is we're raising our kids in a toxic cultural environment, and we're raising them in an environment in which major corporations want to sell them stuff that's going to be very bad for them in order to make a lot of money.
Make sure to check out GetSmartAboutDrugs.com parents, caregivers. You can find so many resources of great information there about how to talk to your kids and make these conversations a little less awkward. A huge thank you to the Elks DAP, which is the largest all-volunteer nationwide drug awareness program, and also a huge thanks to the DEA for their outreach program and for making this possible.
The views, information, or opinions expressed during the Awkward Conversation series are solely those of the individuals, speakers, commentators, experts, and/or hosts involved, and do not necessarily reflect nor represent those of the production, associates, or broadcaster, or any of its employees. Production is not responsible and does not verify for accuracy any of the information contained in the series available for viewing. The primary purpose of this series is to educate and inform. This series does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. This series is available for private, non-commercial use only. The production, broadcaster, or its channel cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this program.